Hello, and welcome to another episode of Poetry FM 101. This is my favorite corner in the world, and now it can be yours too.
All right, so I know you're all very excited because last episode you heard this amazing poet recite their poem, and you're wondering who is this person? Who is this poet that has written such lines? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is with absolute pleasure and delight that I introduce you to Dr. Monica Iyengar.
Thank you.
Monica, thank you so much for being here. And I realized that this morning you had to travel from the other end of the city to this place, right?
Yeah, it was quite the commute.
Yeah, I can imagine. And in Bangalore, more than the distance, I believe it is a time that it takes to get from one place to another.
Of course.
So, Monica, all our audiences have heard your poetry in the audio podcast episode, and I'm sure they're all delighted, to meet you in person. Can we have you recite one of your poems right here,
Sure.
right now?
Sure. I'll just give you a brief background about
Yes.
how
that'd be
the
lovely.
poem came about to be.
Sure.
So when I wrote my management satire and when the manuscript was ready to be published, the managing editor actually told me that you should write a disclaimer to your book so that people don't take it literally. So while it was supposed to be funny and witty and pretty obvious that it should not be taken literally, I was compelled to do something like this. So rather than, put out a sentence or two, I thought, why not make it, into a poem? So that's how this poem came about to be. And it's like a disclaimer without sounding like a disclaimer.
Okay.
So here is how it goes. If you take my advice to heart, don't blame me if it falls apart. If it reminds you of someone, doesn't mean I can't have fun. I am only just like you, trying to make a buck or two. If you choose to hold me accountable, be forewarned, I am not responsible. Just enjoy this ride with me. Don't ruin it with propriety. Consider this my formal disclaimer, should you fall in love with my humor.
That
Yeah.
was, I think, the most rhyming disclaimer that I have ever heard. I like that line where you said, I'm just trying to be like you,
Yeah, trying to make a buck or two. Yeah.
So I'm guessing this has something to do with, it sounds like it has something to do with office politics, something at work. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. So the whole book is about my experience as a woman in the workplace.
Okay.
So how things go about, the daily mumbo jumbo related to corporate culture and
Right.
what is leadership actually about, and a funny take on all those kind of topics, So,
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got two questions coming up next. And the first one is, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience, about who you are, what you do? Perhaps you can also, say something about your book. I understand that you've published a book.
Yes.
So feel free to promote that as well. But yeah, just let the audience know about the poet that you are or the person that you are.
Sure. So I basically am a management professional. I have about 15 years of work experience with business development, marketing, operations, the works. And I primarily have been associated with various multinationals. But during the lockdown, I wanted to change gears. So I took up a Ph.D. I did my doctorate, and after that, I got into what is called scientific editing, which is editorial review of scientific papers. And
Right.
that's what I have been associated with. And this book is something that has been in the making for quite some time. So I used to put in bits and pieces during the course of my work, in all the idle time that I had.
Right.
And I would... and then somehow it all came together. I sent it to the publisher. They liked it. And we published the book. So that's how it came about to be. I also have a lot of academic papers, sort of articles, also non-academic content also, which has been published in a few magazines and journals. So that is something that I do.
So would you say that the contents of this book are closely related to your work? Is that why you were able to infuse so much of experience into it, or is the book a completely different topic, a standalone thing from what you do?
No, it's absolutely related to what I did and my experiences in the workplace. And I think anybody who's been in a, 9 to 7 job will definitely associate with
Right.
with all the things that I have written. So it's my take as a woman, basically, my perspective.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about that for a bit here. I mean, not that we want to dive into politics or gender roles here, but
Yeah.
how has it been? I mean, you've pursued a doctorate. You do some very interesting work in terms of the domain that you work in, and how has it been now that you say you've written about the challenges of being a woman? So, as a woman in this particular industry, how has it been? What are some of the unique challenges that you faced? Anything worth sharing?
See, I was always in sales, so it was primarily a man's job. I was the only woman in sales. So, and retail sales, corporate sales, all those kinds of things. So while I wouldn't say that there was any discrimination per se towards me, because I was always given an equal opportunity to prove myself, but there were certain instances where my abilities were questioned because I was a woman, as in, would she be able to do this? This job is not very sophisticated. It was not a particularly sophisticated job because of the
Right.
kind of work it entailed,
Right.
So those questions were always there, but I won't say that I faced any particular kind of discrimination. But yes,
Right.
there's always a perception. But I think once people get to know me, it takes care of that. But I'm sure people have issues in this particular.
So you mean like once people get to know you and see you beyond the gender, beyond the
Yeah.
female, and understand that you bring to
Who
the
I
table-
am as a person,
As a
then
person, right,
then
right.
I think that fear or whatever is that perception gets dissipated, but it's always there. So
Right.
it's
And do you feel that that perception is from this misunderstanding that has it something to do with skills, or the fear that women lack the skills or the knowledge or the
both.
the
I think
expertise?
stereotyping and patriarchy, both of them put together.
Right.
Because I am working in India, so I think our culture and the way we look at gender roles, all that plays a part in how you're viewed as a person. So
True.
yes, so I think all of it put together, not just one thing.
Absolutely. And in your experience, do you think that there is any truth or substance to men being better at sales as such?
No, I think both men and women bring different things to the table.
Yes.
You cannot compare the physical aspect of it, because men are obviously physically stronger. But if you're talking about the mental aspect of it, I think both bring in, I would not even go to saying that women are better than men and things like that. We are equal and we bring different things to the table, and we
So
are
in
competent.
sales, it's a like an equal playing field.
Of course, it's a level playing field. I don't think sales, actually, there's a chapter in my book which specifically says why women are so good at sales, because they require a lot of persuasion, and
Right.
so there's a funny take on that. So I have mentioned
And women are like have a knack for the
like women
persuasion, the
invented
art of-
emotional blackmail, which is a short form for closure.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, so
Well,
things like that.
I would love to read that book, or this chapter in particular. So
Yeah.
that way, would you tell us about the name of this book and where we might find it?
So the book is called Work Hardly, A Cheat Guide to Success. It's available on Amazon, so you can find it there.
All right.
Yeah.
Work Hardly. If you'd like to check this out, that's Work Hardly, available on Amazon. I will put the link in the description of the podcast as well. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your life, sharing
Thank
a piece of your life, and giving us a sneak peek into what you do and your experiences. Which brings me to my question: when did you first encounter poetry, or when did you first realize that you could write poetry?
Actually, I do come from a family of poets. So my aunt is a published Hindi poet. So she has published a book which is well recognized by the government also, of the state that she is in. So And she has also published a lot of poems for children. So, and I grew up, engaging with her. So maybe some part of it rubbed off.
Right.
But so she used to introduce me to a lot of funny Hindi poems. So, trying to teach me the language while it being funny, so it's easy to remember, and memorize. So that was my first exposure, I would say, to poetry, both Hindi and English. English, of course, in school. But in school, it was more of, rote and, reciting it by memory and things like that. And I think at that time, we didn't really critically evaluate poems for what for its worth,
And you didn't have that personal attachment.
Yeah, and we didn't, I think, have the ability, or we were not taught how to judge a poem. So, right, so those things were there. So I think those were my first tryst with poetry.
With poetry.
Yeah.
And when did you create or write your first poem?
I think some bits I have done here and there. I wouldn't say they were poems, but more so catchphrases when I was at work and I had to kind of do a little marketing bit for something, then couple of lines here and there.
So it was like a slow, gradual growth.
Yeah, I would say so. And I think my first published poem is obviously with this book. And there's another poem in my book actually, which is on the epilogue. So that was written prior to the poem I just recited. So a lot of my frustrations put together, as a poem.
In a poetic way. Okay, that's amazing, right? Awesome. What is your philosophy of poetry, or what does poetry mean to you? Right? What does it, in terms of connection, in terms of how you feel about it? What is poetry to you?
I think poetry is generally, like you said, associated with romance and love, right? So while I don't want to take that away from it, I think it can be so much more. Absolutely. Because it can be very educative. It can be a means of entertainment. Right. And it has this inherent ability to reach the masses, especially if it's in the local language, in the vernacular language. So I think even for something educative, like, for example, asking people to take a vaccine and things like that, polio for that matter, even if you see the catchphrase during that time, people remember that. So I think it's a very nice way to communicate something very quickly, and it has the ability to reach. And I think poetry, if it is well written, that is, if it has, it's culturally adept, if it can evoke emotion, and if it can capture the essence of its time, then it can be an anthem for revolution, And in history, poetry has also been used as innuendo. And that, I think, it's a very great strength that poetry has, because it can be used to communicate ideas whose time is yet to come, or difficult ideas, or during troubled political times, if there is something that you want to communicate. Poetry is a good vehicle for that, So I think poetry is so much more.
I love that statement that you said about innuendos and political connections, and it made me think poetry is something that adds sense to sensitive topics.
Yes.
But removes the sensitivity out of it and puts it out there. So you can talk about something that is the need of the hour.
Without being abrasive.
Without being abrasive, without being offensive, without coming across as an ass, let's say.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that was a great philosophy of poetry, I'd say, right? So, when was the last time that someone tried to impress you with poetry? Has anyone tried that? Knowing that you write poetry?
Unfortunately, I don't have an exciting answer for that, because that has not happened to me. So, yet. So nobody has written a poetry for me.
Oh, well, that was unexpected, but okay. All right, then. Have you ever written a poem for someone?
No, I wouldn't say so. I'm not romantic that way. So,
all right. So, poetry is not your love language. It is more about your expressing other things. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Are you ready for a bit of fun? A rapid fire round.
Sure.
Are you ready? So you have to choose between the two options I give.
Okay.
And you can only select one, as appealing as both might be.
Okay.
And the first thing that comes to your mind, so no thinking.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
Ice creams or salad?
Salad.
Wow, okay. You're all in green today. I guess that makes sense. Fight or flight?
Fight.
Fight?
Yeah.
That was unexpected, but you seem like a very
I don't believe in running away, so.
right. Looks can be deceiving. I mean, you
Yeah.
come across as a very calm and composed person.
Yeah, fight doesn't necessarily mean violence. So,
Right. No, but even in the argumentative or the vocal sense, do you?
of course, I would prefer to choose to argue than, put
Then-
my point across, of course.
Amazing. All right. Love or luxury?
Love.
All right. Well, maybe you are more romantic than you think. Poetry or fame and money?
Fame and money.
Oh, why? If I might ask.
Poetry is not my subject. I mean, you've given me two options. So
All
if
right.
you told me writing
right.
or fame or money, I would have chosen writing.
Writing.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
All right. Okay. Having the love of your life or unlimited travel for life, but solo.
Having the love of my life.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, Dr. Monica Iyengar. Monica, thank you so much, for being here. It was a pleasure having you. And yeah, I hope our paths cross again.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful being here.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be back again next week with another poet, another story, another rhyme. Until then, stay tuned and do check out Monica's books and her profile, the links to which I will be dropping in the comments below. You guys take care and have an amazing week until we meet again.